Hello, Mega Maniacs, and welcome back to the PC Engine Files. If you're new to this channel, please subscribe, or if you like this content, subscribe. Either way, leave a thumbs up and your comments on what we're featuring today below. And what we're featuring today is kind of different. And I mean that in every sense of the word. This is Maniac Pro Wrestling for the PC Engine, which seemed to me on the surface of it to be a really good idea because I like pro wrestling games. I really like Fire Pro Wrestling games and any of the derivatives thereof when they get renamed for localization in North America, such as No Mercy 64, one of the most famous examples of that. But this one was completely unknown to me before I saw it in a cheap Japanese eBay auction listing. So I took a chance on it and thought, hey, it's called Maniac Pro Wrestling. How bad can it be? Well, I gotta start by saying it's not quite what you would think it would be from the name of the game. Let me quote from PC Engine Software Bible: strategic wrestling where you choose your moves from a list when the match is in progress. And I cannot summarize it any better. This is not a game where you get to actually grapple with your opponent. This is like a role-playing game where you have turn-based combat. They attack and you attack. You select an action and they select an action. You cannot grapple your opponent and throw them, suplex them, clothesline them, kick them, punch them, take them out of the ring, throw them into the barricade, throw them into the turnbuckle, throw them into the ring steps, throw them back into the ring, do a flying crossbody and pin them. No, you don't get to do any of that. Everything that you do is predetermined from a list, and when you move your character around the ring and make contact with your opponent, you can select an item from the list. This might not be entirely terrible if you spoke and read and understood everything in Japanese, but since I am not fluent in the written language and only know a few phrases in the spoken language, the language barrier is quite insurmountable here in its unadulterated form without a patch of some kind, especially here at the beginning in what is a very plot-heavy driven introduction. The best I can make of it, and this is strictly a guess, you're a young lion at some Japanese pro wrestling dojo, New Japan, All Japan, Pro Wrestling Noah, whatever the case, and you have the audacity to think you can hang with the grizzled young veterans, and they put a beating on you to teach you some respect and some manners and tell you, if you're serious about being in this dojo, you're going to start at the ground floor and work your way up, literally. Now, they don't make you scrub the floors and cook the meals, which is what a young lion would do in a dojo to show respect to his superiors, but maybe that would have actually been a good addition to this game. Some sort of side quest that you could do to earn respect until you actually get your matches in the ring, because once you actually get in the ring, it is slow, tedious, and uneventful. When I said you get to interact with the wrestler before you use your drop-down list of moves, all you're doing when you interact, quote-unquote, is holding directions on the D-pad until you and your opponent make contact with each other. And there's not even that much space you can move around the ring in because there is a very narrow playfield confined to the middle. So you can move up and down just a little bit, and you can move left and right just a little bit. But as you can see here, there's just not much you can do in that amount of space. There are boxing games that have been designed in a similar way, but at least when you're playing one of those side view boxing games, you're actually throwing punches or blocking punches or ducking punches. You're actually performing the actions yourself. Even though your ability to move around is limited, you are actually fully in control of everything. Here, it's completely random as far as I can tell whether or not you pick a move from the list and that move is going to land or not. You do have status bars on the screen. I'm the one on the left and my opponent's the one on the right. And when you get hit, it's flashing and then it goes down a tick. But even that doesn't seem to be very helpful because during this match, I got my health all the way whittled down to just one left on my status bar. So I started spamming the very first move on the list, which is either a chop or a punch of some kind. I just hit it over and over again and thought, I got nothing left. I might as well go for broke and see what happens, just spamming this move. And somehow, miraculously, I won the match. And it didn't even show me making the pin or getting my hand raised. It just anticlimactically cut to a screen that said, well, it said something in Japanese, that's for sure, but what it said was I was the victor. I don't know the exact verbiage, it just said I'd won. And I moved on, and I went back to the dojo where it gave me a list of options, one of which was to save my progress, which is measured in leg, arm, head, and speed. And apparently you can train up those stats, but I couldn't decipher the menus enough to figure out how to make those stats better. And then I started thinking about that seriously for a minute. Why am I training up those individual stats like this is a role-playing game where I'm increasing my magic and my health and my hit points and my stamina? Why am I doing these things? Oh yeah, that's right. This is basically a wrestling RPG. Because everything is being animated in these cutscenes when you select the down list of moves. And once you select a move, it just happens without you being in control of it. Just like when you select an action in a role-playing game, your character will do the action and you are not controlling them doing the action, they just do it. Well, I suppose there is an audience for this type of pro wrestling game. I'm not it, but I'm not saying it doesn't exist. It's just when it's called pro wrestling, I expect it to actually be doing the pro wrestling myself, not having it be done and animated for me. You know, as I was looking for information about this game, I came across a blog that was called The Clueless Gaijin. And that's how I felt playing Maniac Pro Wrestling. I felt like a clueless gaijin myself. And I would call this game not a pro wrestling game where you are winning by superior grappling and technique and hitting a special move when your power meter is maxed out. I would call this a kickboxing or a boxing game gussied up with a pro wrestling window dressing over the top. Don't let it fool you into thinking that you're actually wrestling. In fact, let me reference the Clueless Gaijin again. He said, it's not even an action game, it's a role-playing game with stats. That's it. That's exactly it. That's what I've been saying to you for all these minutes leading up to this point in the review. It's a role-playing game with stats. It's not quote-unquote pro wrestling at all. But it's called Maniac Pro Wrestling, so it's very misleading. Learn from my mistake, and don't seek this out if you're expecting a Fire Pro Wrestling type experience. Even though it was cheap, I mean, you can add it to your library if you're looking for variety or something inexpensive. But if you're doing it because you want a game that, one, is an incredibly fun action game, it's probably not going to fit that bill, and two, easy to understand if you don't read and write Japanese, it's not going to fit that bill either. So this one is an uphill slog in every sense of the word. It's certainly interesting, but I don't think it's for most people like me. But it is inexpensive. Loose copies go for $3-4, around about that ballpark. Complete copies, anywhere from 8 to 10. New copies can still be had for under 20. Yeah, somehow I think this game wasn't even that popular in Japan. Or maybe conversely, the opposite is true. They made so many copies that it now holds little value because everybody had it. It's either one or the other. Like, it's inexpensive because nobody wants it, or it's inexpensive because they made a zillion copies of it and nobody's desperate to get it because it's available everywhere. This is not a rare PC Engine game, and if I'm being honest about it, it's not even that good of a PC Engine game. There are better pro wrestling games on PC Engine. There are better video games on PC Engine. There are much better experiences that you can have for the same or less money, and definitely better experiences that you can have for a little more money. So here's the bottom line on Maniac Pro Wrestling. If you are absolutely bound and determined to play this game no matter what, don't buy it first. Try it in emulation first. Give yourself that luxury of experiencing it before you put down the money. Because even if you bundle it together as an import, as I often talk about doing, you're still going to pay $15 to $20 for shipping no matter how many games you throw in. And if this was the only one that you really wanted out of that whole lot, are you going to be satisfied at the end of the day? Are you going to say, wow, I got all these great games and I got Maniac Pro Wrestling and I got them all for $20 shipped? No, you're probably going to say, wow, I got all these other games that are really cool for $20 shipped, and I also got Maniac Pro Wrestling. It's not going to be the top pick of the litter. It's going to be the bottom dog at the runt of the litter. It's going to be the one that maybe should have been given more care and love to, and somebody will find it a home and treat it well, and it'll grow up to be respected and admired and fiercely loyal to whoever has it. But this puppy ain't for me. I'm Mr. Mega Man fan, and this has been the PC Engine Files. And if you like what we do on this channel, please subscribe. I know I mentioned that at the start, but it's good to mention it again at the end. If you like Maniac Pro Wrestling more than I do, hey, feel free to say so. I'm not immune to that kind of commentary. There are some games that I'm probably going to revisit in the future because people have liked them better than I did when I covered them in a video, so I'm always willing to give something a second chance. But quite frankly, I'm pretty sure that even with an English language patch, which would overcome some of the barriers to entry here, I still wouldn't be into a game where all the moves are done for you and you have no real control over the outcome, other than what I can assume is dumb luck. Maybe you pick the right move and it works better than your opponent's move, but I just have no way of knowing, and that's not fun. Thanks, and I'll see you again in another video.